Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, Isis, Escape from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Escape from Transylvania in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Academy Award winning actor Morgan Freeman is the latest celebrity to be targeted by the Me Too movement. And in a recent report, it was alleged that Morgan Freeman had participated in sexual harassment of women on the set of several of his movies and may have possibly sexually assaulted some women on the set of his movies. And these women have decided to come forward to make these allegations. However, I find the timing of them making these allegations to be very suspect. And the reason why I find the timing of their allegations to be suspect is because the afternoon they made the announcement of their allegations comes on the same day of a morning where the district attorney decided that he was not going to pursue charges against Scott Baio in the case where Nicole Eggert, his co-star on Charles in Charge, made allegations that Scott Baio molested Nicole Eggert and may have possibly participated in statutory rape when they were on the set of Charles in Charge. And again, I find the timing of these allegations to be suspect because here we have a wealthy white man, Scott Baio, having to deal with allegations of sexual harassment, sexual assault, and possibly statutory rape. And what we have is a deflection to try to bring things in the Me Too movement to go after Morgan Freeman very conveniently at the same time that Scott Baio is making an announcement that there will be no charges filed against him. And that's why I find those allegations to be suspect, because it looks like white supremacists are trying to deflect from Scott Baio over to Morgan Freeman. Moreover, it looks like many of these white supremacists are trying to reframe the whole Me Too movement around black men once more. Now, when it comes down to this Me Too movement has been trying to frame, the white supremacists have been trying to frame the argument around black men for some time. And they have tried to do this with Bill Cosby, they've tried to do it with R. Kelly, they've tried to do it with Tavis Smiley, and every time they have tried to frame the argument around black men, the white feminists of the Me Too movement take the frame away from the black man and they put it back in front of another rich white man. And it looks like, again, these white supremacists are trying to take the frame and put it around Morgan Freeman in the hopes of making the Me Too movement appear to be a movement to target black men and destroy the resources and legacies of successful black men. And when I look at what they're trying to do to Morgan Freeman, it's clear to me that there is, like what Mr. Superboy has stated in his own videos, a list of black men that the Me Too movement is targeting, and a list of successful black men that white supremacists are targeting and trying to destroy their reputation, destroy their legacy, and destroy their careers in this whole campaign. And when I look at what's happening to Morgan Freeman, I want to be sympathetic to Morgan Freeman. However, I have my reservations regarding things because Morgan Freeman has made several statements that I find to be quite troubling. And the first statement your Morgan Freeman made that I found to be quite troubling was regarding his race, because your Morgan Freeman said that he wasn't a black actor and he wasn't black, and he said things about racism that I found to be quite troubling. And now we have your Morgan Freeman in trouble due to the Me Too movement, a movement that is supported by white feminists and white supremacists, two groups that have always looked to destroy black men. And I look at this at your Morgan Freeman, and it's looking like karma is coming to Morgan Freeman because he's finding out how black he is. Moreover, I look at Morgan Freeman's actions over the last year or this year, and they also show me karma coming back to your Morgan Freeman, because your Morgan Freeman was one of these celebrities who spoke against Bill Cosby and he was someone who was standing at the Golden Globes with one of these Me Too pins on. And here was a man who was sitting there talking about how he was a male feminist and fighting for women's rights. And just like Harvey Weinstein, the male feminist, those same women turned on Morgan Freeman. And they turned on Morgan Freeman because when it comes down to the women of the Me Too movement, they aren't loyal to anyone, and they're not even loyal to themselves. And they'll turn on anyone because when we boil down the Me Too movement is all about older women trying to get access to resources to get themselves taken care of in their old age. No, the Me Too movement is not about sexual harassment or sexual assault or stopping sexual harassment or sexual assault. It is about old, faded former starlets, old, faded former PAs, old, faded former entertainers, and old, aspiring former entertainers and entertainer side pieces looking to be able to get access to celebrity resources that would be able to take care of them in their old age. And what they want to do with the Me Too movement is use the victim position in order to get economic power for themselves by using the victim position as a political platform to institute some sort of change. And they've already started making momentum towards making change because with the conviction of Bill Cosby for sexual assault, they have laid the groundwork for the legal precedent they need to go after other men. And we clearly see that with what they're doing right now, making allegations against people. And the reason why they make those allegations now is because, again, they have destroyed the Sixth Amendment and they have destroyed due process under the law. And instead of us getting an objective assessment of evidence based on fact, we now have these females making allegations based on their emotions. And with the courts taking the Bill Cosby conviction and the legal precedent from the Bill Cosby conviction, this is now the standard of law in the United States. And these women want to use that standard to get convictions against men in criminal court and then go to civil court and try to get judgments against those rich men and get judgments against the corporations where those men were employed. And that's the plan of the Me Too movement, to get these older women access to resources to get them taken care of in their old age, because when it comes down to many of these faded former starlets, these PAs who are working on the sets of these movies, and many of these side pieces, and many of these women on the casting couch, many of these women can no longer trade on their looks. Many of these women have hit the wall, and many of these women know that their access to resources is going to be limited because they can no longer get attention from many of the men who were prominent in Hollywood, and many of the younger men in Hollywood want nothing to do with them, so they want to be able to try to get access to resources from those older men. And when I look at what's happening to Morgan Freeman, it looks like they're targeting him and trying to get access to his resources because Morgan Freeman is a very rich man and they want to get access to those resources. So they make these allegations as part of this Me Too movement in the hopes of getting access to his resources and his estate, and they want to get some sort of settlement so they can be taken care of in their old age. Now, when I look at this Me Too movement, I believe that this Me Too movement is eventually going to push itself too far, and what's going to happen is we're going to have a serious backlash. And we're starting to see a lot of men starting to push back by doing things like not hiring women, and men maintaining some sort of professional distance by going MGTOW at work. And we're not seeing men go to bars and clubs and things like that because they do not want to have their lives destroyed by some sort of allegation by a female of sexual harassment or sexual assault by just walking down the street. So I look at this latest allegation of Morgan Freeman, and it shows me how this Me Too movement just continues to escalate. And a lot of guys think that this is just about him being a black man, But I see sooner or later what they're going to do is try to reframe the argument back around another white man, because as it relates to this Me Too movement is not just about black men, it's also about all men, and it's about trying to take away the rights of men so that women have access to men's resources, and they can create a political system which will allow them to have economic access to those resources and keep those men oppressed in a second class position under gynocentric Jim Crow. And that's what they really want to do. And Morgan Freeman is just the latest victim of this Me Too movement. And what Morgan Freeman's case shows me is that you cannot make compromises with this Me Too movement, just like he did, and just like Eric Schneiderman did, trying to support these women. Because when it comes down to the women of the Me Too movement, if you try to stand up for them as a man, what these women will do eventually is stab you in the back, and then they will throw you under the bus and destroy your career. And then after they destroy your career, they will try to get access to your resources. So it shows me that every man out here, the only thing he can do as it relates to this Me Too movement is he has to go scorched earth on these females, and he has to stand up against these females, because when it comes down to the Me Too movement is not about stopping sexual harassment or sexual assault in the workplace. It's about destroying men in an effort to get resources for older women to get taken care of in their old age, and women not taking responsibility for their actions in those situations they were in. Because when it comes down to many of these women in the Me Too movement, many of these women are revising history to make themselves into victims when they were in many cases actual participants who were just as complicit in these actions with these men in these casting couches and in these areas, and they need to be held equally accountable for their actions and shown the truth about their actions, because you cannot revise history to change the facts. You have to confront the facts that your hands were just as dirty as these celebrities, and you were just as complicit in your actions with these individuals. Because when I look at Morgan Freeman's case, many of these women waited 3 and 4 years talking about how much influence Morgan Freeman had, when we know that most black celebrities do not have that kind of influence. Now, we know Harvey Weinstein may have that kind of influence, and Scott Baio could have that possible influence because Weinstein was heavily connected, and your Scott Baio is a very wealthy man. But your guys like your Morgan Freemans and your Bill Cosbys, we can look at these allegations and see that these allegations really, they're not substantiated, because any black man, all you have to do is call 911, and that man is going to jail if he's doing something that's inappropriate, especially if he's doing anything inappropriate to a white female. So that's when I look at these allegations against Morgan Freeman, and they just don't add up to me for the same way they don't add up in the case of Bill Cosby. However, again, when I look at Morgan Freeman, he shows me again, when you try to make compromises with the Me Too movement is ruthless, and the Me Too movement will destroy anyone who tries to make compromises with them, because when it comes down to the Me Too movement, it's all about resources. It's not about trying to protect women's rights or fight for women's rights. It's all about imposing gynocentric Jim Crow on men and making men second-class citizens in their own country. And that's why men really have to start standing up against this Me Too movement, because the Me Too movement isn't about creating a more inclusive America. It's about creating a fiefdom for a handful of women who want to use the victim position to maintain economic power by politically oppressing men. If you would like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct Men's Issues titles, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.